What's up, Infected? It's Wolf with the Quarantine, and this is Kickstart Your Week. So if you're not familiar with what Kickstart Your Week is, this is my weekly show that I go over the past week's Kickstarters that just came out, and I go over and kind of look them over, watch the video, depending on how interesting it looks, I delve a little further in. But it's totally biased. There's no hard, fast rules. It's literally what caught my eye and what I thought you guys might find interesting. Now, with so many Kickstarters out there and so little time, I narrow it down to 5. So just because it's not on this list doesn't mean I didn't think it was great. A lot of the time it's probably not, but it doesn't mean I didn't think it was cool. Sometimes there's more games, but I gotta narrow it down to 5. Also, if you do like this format, this style of show, check out the Gamerati. I'll have down in the description a link. I do a weekly podcast, or a lot of the time it's weekly. Occasionally, we do skip. But it's kind of like this, but instead we each pick one Kickstarter that we like, which is usually going to be my Kickstarter of the week. And we just talk a little bit more in depth about why we chose that game and why that game is awesome, why you should look into backing it. Then after everything is said and done, I give out an arbitrary award of my Kickstarter of the week. Out of the 5, the one that I thought was better than the rest for any arbitrary BS reason. So, starting this off, we're going to have Heart of Crown Fairy Garden. Now, as you can not see here, because I forgot it's down here, Heart of Crown is probably one of my favorite deck building games. Tanto Kori is my favorite, but I don't, it might be tied. I'll have to actually sit down at some point and play both back to back several times and try to kind of make a final decision. But Heart of Crown is a phenomenal deck builder. If you like deck builders, the way Heart of Crown works, what sets it a step apart is you have the princesses, and the princesses give you certain powers. So it's a normal deck builder. You're trying to get up all this money and cull your deck, or maybe build your deck in a way to get all these good cards, or whatever. However you wind up playing a normal deck builder, that's still here. But when you back a princess, that's just a new cool thing that you get to do, and only you get to do the entire game. But where it really shines is the random market. So in the base game, there's like 30 cards. 30 base or random market cards. You're going to choose 10 of them. Each one of those cards has 5 cards of that kind. You shuffle it into a central market deck, and that's just what you build out of, and there's always going to be 8 unique cards out of the field, which is phenomenal. Because what that winds up doing is, now you have another level of strategy. Do you buy these cards that you really need because there's only 5, but if somebody else buys them, they're gone. They're nothing. You'd never get to buy them again, or how do you do? So it's a really cool game. But I digress. Fairy Garden is literally the same thing. It's an expand alone, where you don't have to have the original Heart of Crown. You can start right here. Now that kind of leads to a problem, because it has the same market cards, the same base market, cities, the large cities, senators, curse cards, all those. You have all those the same. You have the same really crappy starting maids and like farming villages, I think they're called. And those are all the same. You even have the same princesses, which is kind of a bummer. But you get 30 new cards. If you have both, you can actually combine them. There's a few rules, certain cards you can't use, but you can combine them. Now, this isn't really an official thing, but one of the things you can do that I've kind of been doing a little bit of research and kind of test playing. I don't see any reason why you can't just combine the 2 sets and play with more than 4 players, because it's a 2 to 4 player game, because you have enough stuff technically for 8 players. Basically just make the market deck bigger. Again, that's not an official thing, but I can sit here and talk about Heart of Crown all day, but that is why it is on my list here. The biggest downfall that some people are definitely going to hate, which I want to make sure I stress on here, is the biggest bummer is it's the same princesses from the base game. So I feel like it's a missed opportunity, but I have a review for it. Check that out along with the tutorial. Next up is Crisis: The New Economy. Now, I was on the fence of whether or not I actually wanted to put this on here, because I still own Crisis. I never play it, and I'll explain why. So, Crisis, phenomenal game, until you realize that there's one strategy that if you figure it out, you will win. We have person who does that strategy, which I'll get to, has won 100% of the games that we've played in, or I think they've lost one maybe. That is you take farms and restaurants together, and you just print out points. And it's ridiculous because you don't have to do anything. You just start churning a ton of points out, and then you're free to also pursue the other avenues that everybody else is. So you're just always going to have a leg up. So the person in our games that does that, it manages to get farms, one farm and one restaurant, or worse, 2 farms, 2 restaurants. They always win every game. It's kind of a bummer. So I've kept on to it though, because the premise of the game, and other than that, the game is phenomenal. The game is so much fun. It's pretty as hell. My favorite movie is The Fifth Element, and the front of the box reminds me of it. But we never play it, and I've been holding on to it in hopes that they come out with an expansion like this. Now, this expansion adds, I think it's 15 new economy cards, which are the businesses, and you add them and replace certain cards with them. So basically what I plan on doing is removing either restaurants or farms and putting them in their place. And I hope that fixes my problem with the game, because everything else I love about this game. So if you're in the same boat as me, definitely do this, or definitely check this one out. All right, moving right along here. Next up is Gruff. I have it right here, but this is Gruff Stuff of Nightmares. Now, if you don't know what Gruff is kind of like a living card game meets Magic again, I guess. Basically, it's 3 billy goats Gruff on an opium-fueled nightmare, basically. So you have your goat master or whatever, and then you have your 3 billy goats, basically. And they're all deformed, demonic, and just monstrosities. So you build a deck based on the goats that you have. So if you have, these 3 goats, each one of them have cards with their portrait on it, and you build a deck of like 50 cards or something like that, with using just those goats' cards. Each goat specializes in different things. You have the position that they're in, and you attack, and it's a really, really good game. You sound like a psychopath trying to explain it, but it is a really fun game. One of the things that's really interesting with Gruff, though, is if I attack, damage isn't going to be dealt until it comes back to my turn. So you have a whole turn to ready that attack, maybe switch some goats around. Now I suddenly hurt myself, and the game is so cool. It's so much fun. I don't get it to the table as much as I would like, but I already own everything Gruff, I think, except for the newest expansion that just came out on Kickstarter, or just fulfilled from Kickstarter. I think it's the only one I'm missing. But no, Gruff is a phenomenal game. If you want a light little game that can be played with 2, 3, or 4 players, it's fantastic, and I will always accept more Gruff stuff. Next up is Alice in Shroomland Spore Cultivation. Now, this one, I'm going to say right out of the gates here, this is not a paid advertisement or endorsement or anything like that. I did review this game. I did a paid, their video they have on the Kickstarter, I did that. It was paid. I did a paid tutorial for them. Again, as you guys probably know, I don't charge for reviews, so of course I did that for free. But at first glance, and I know a lot of people are here, probably maybe did the same thing I would have done. First glance, you're gonna go, that looks really stupid, and you're gonna pass it by, because it's got that lull, edgy, kind of druggy look to it. All the pictures is all drug related, stuff like that. So a lot of people are gonna pass it over, but I can assure you, if you like deck builders, and specifically if you like the legendary deck builders, for example, I have legendary encounters down there. It's like legendary, just watered down. It doesn't take 30 years to set up like legendary does, but it feels very much like a legendary game. You have this map, and you have the enemy cards that are slowly marching across the map. And I realize half the time me doing this, I'm off screen, but whatever. You have these bad guys slowly marching across the map, and when they get to the end, really bad things happen, kind of like the legendary games, and you're desperately trying to build these decks. But where the game differs is there's certain things with the drug theme. It can be really funny because I can take your deck at certain points, depending on certain things that can happen. I can take your deck, it's still yours, but I can use it to just do shitty things with, and then give it back to you afterwards. It's now your deck again. Have fun with that. It's really funny. but it's actually a solid game. So I know a lot of people are going to look at it and go, whatever. It's going to be one of those lulz, cash grab kind of games, but it's really not. It is genuinely a really fun, really good game. And again, this is not an endorsement or an advertisement or anything. I guess technically it's an endorsement, but you get the idea. I wasn't paid to say any of this. It is actually a really good game. Definitely give it a chance if you have the money to spare and you like deck building. And lastly, probably to a surprise to nobody, is Harem Kombat. Now, if you're like me, I love me some anime titties in my board games. I love lewd. I love adult situations. Let me see some boobs in my games, especially, anime. We all know 2D girls are way superior. So I'm a huge deviant and a pervert, and I love sex and boobs in my games. And I know it's going to piss a lot of people off, but screw you. It's my show. So Harem Kombat, I was a little iffy if I wanted to put that on this list, purely because I did back the original Harem Kombat, or Harem, I don't remember exactly what it's called, Harem something. I did back the original game. They haven't fulfilled that yet, but they're already coming out with an expansion on Kickstarter, so that does have me a little bit worried. They've been very good with their updates, whole 9 yards. So I'm not super worried. I'm more just kind of like, why didn't you guys, put it maybe as an update? But I get why. But the game is like a set collecting, take that party game, which, in all honesty, is probably going to be not really good. But, throw some anime boobs on cards. You've probably got my vote anyway. So throw Space, Hidden Trader, and anime titties. I'm probably a shoo-in right there. So, but the new expansion it's the combat expansion, which, from what I understand, it adds a couple new game modes, a cooperative game mode, I think it is, and adds some dice. It just adds more stuff. So, I mean, you want to put more anime boobs in my games, I'm totally cool with that. So that's why I put this one on the list, because it did look like an entertaining, fun game. I have a couple lewd games over there, like Karate Fight, I think, and a few other ones. And this is just going to kind of fit that same, I want to play a game and look at some anime boobs at the same time. Let's pull it out. Phrasing. Alright, and those are my 5 Kickstarters of this week. Now, I did actually have to cull a few games. Usually I struggle to hit that 5. A lot of the time I don't care and I'll just do 1 or 2, 3 games, whatever. But this week, no, I think I had like 8. And I shaved them off. And due to the spirit of the show, I'm not going to mention those, so I only do 5. But my arbitrary Kickstarter of the week, which I eventually need to get better graphics for. So if anybody's willing to help, let me know. But my honorary, arbitrary Kickstarter of the week is actually going to go to the Heart of Crown Fairy Garden Expandalone. Purely because, a couple reasons. A, I've played it. I know it's phenomenal. B, if you like deck builders, pick up Heart of Crown. It is a phenomenal game. It does so many things right. So many games that so many games miss out on. Biggest issue is, like I said, that the fact that it's a missed opportunity kind of feels like you're paying full price for only 30 new cards. Well, 30 times 5, of course. But you're going to feel kind of like maybe you're doing that, but again, unofficially, there's really no reason you can't just combine both sets. Now you can technically play up to 8 players. Just instead of choosing 10, choose 20 of those, of all of the initial cards, and you get a big stack of cards. Play with 20 people. Or not 20, Jesus Christ. Play with 8 people. That might be a friggin' insane nightmare, or it might be a blast. So anyways, that's going to be my arbitrary award, is going to be the Heart of Crown Fairy Garden. Anyways, if you like this show, YouTube pulled my funding because I don't have enough subscribers, so if you're new here, definitely subscribe. If you'd like to help support the show, I have a Patreon link down in the description. If you're afraid of commitment, and I know some of you guys are, I have a tip jar down in the whatever the hell that's called again, as well. Any little bit definitely helps. Anyways, make sure you play more games, and I'll see you guys next time in the quarantine.